Good morning, everybody. Welcome into your FreightWaves NOW Community Spotlight on this Tuesday morning. I'm Kaylee Nix. We've got Mary O'Connell here on the line talking all things 3PL with a check call update. Mary, thanks for joining us.
Anytime, guys. You know that there's truly no better way to start your Taco Tuesday than right here with Check Call in the mornings.
There we go. And we've got another great episode on the way today with one of our favorite folks here at FreightWaves, Lean Solutions Group. It's been a really good partner to us and has really taken kind of I would almost say like a firm market grab on the outside staffing solutions workspace. And it's particularly helpful when it comes to 3PLs. Talk to us a little bit about Lean and your guest.
So obviously, pretty much everyone in the space already knows Lean. They are a fantastic solution for, honestly, what started out as like a staffing and now is just for, it feels like there's very little that they can't do for you, which is obviously a great position for them to be in. But today we talked to Alfonso Quijano, the Chief Technology Officer, and everyone undoubtedly knows Alfonso, but really we kind of touched a little bit on the rise of nearshoring and kind of how those alternative teams are really helpful and can be that resource that you need to ultimately be profitable, stay successful, and have ready and accessible talent at your fingertips.
There's a lot of pros that come with building out a nearshoring staff, like the solutions that Lean Solutions Group offers, but there's also some big time cons that come with it, right? And let's start off talking about the pros. One of them, as you mentioned, is flexibility and that ability to better support your customers kind of holistically. As we know, freight is an industry that doesn't sleep, so having folks that are in more than one location in the world can definitely be beneficial. What are some of the other pros that come with building out a staff solution of folks that are nearshored?
I mean, it kind of, there's almost an endless list of pros, but some of the big highlights is obviously on the operations side to have those extra team members that are there and, can maybe look something up on a carrier's website. They can be, looking for documentation, looking for stuff like that, which is something that is tedious and time consuming, but it needs to be done. And obviously, nearshoring out to Colombia does have some cost savings with it. So that is a really big win there. But often, a lot of times specifically on the technology side, it's kind of hard to get a good development team because obviously the developers are in a short supply. So being able to just say, and sometimes you don't need you don't need to hire a whole development team to build out some system or to get some integration done. You don't need a whole team forever. You maybe just need them for 6 months to a year. And some people are hesitant to take contract work. Well, Lean Solutions also has that technology aspect, which we really kind of dive into today, that ability to just say, hey, I need help with this project. And I need help kind of figuring out how to access some of this data. Can you guys help me? And they have teams that their whole job is just to work on different projects and contracts. And then once the task is done, they move on to something else. So it's a really great resource in that aspect for not having to necessarily go through and hire and manage and do benefits and all that for someone that maybe only be with your company for 6 months to a year.
So let's talk a little bit about the cons of having a nearshore team like that, because again, it lies inside the people. One of the ones that immediately comes to mind is that you lose a lot of company culture and some of that kind of ethos and connection that comes with having a job when you have multiple remote teams who are based all over the place. And if your headquarters is based in a separate location as well, right? That's one of those things that I think has kind of plagued this remote work or remote first ethos that has dominated the workforce, is you lose a lot of that company culture and connection. Is that an issue that we see? And then what are some other cons that come forward when it comes to nearshoring your staff?
So one of the things that Lean Solution has done is they have really made it a priority to, still have your culture there, even though they might be in an office with people working at 60 different companies, it still is a priority there. And that is always nice to hear, even though it sometimes is very difficult to translate it to another location. But I think it really just kind of comes down to, you get out of it what you put into it. So if you just kind of treat it as an afterthought and aren't investing that much time in it, then it's not going to work out very well for you. You're not going to be that successful because you're not putting into it what you want to get out of it. But for those who do put into it and do consider it a true extension of their office, it'll probably be one of the best resources they've had. But like you mentioned, that because everyone is remote, some of those solutions that we see, even that we saw a lot at the beginning of the pandemic, and some companies still have now, where you're trying to explain something and there's a problem. And it would be so much easier if I could just walk over to your desk and explain it. Instead, we have a meeting and someone's sharing a screen and all of that. So it is some of those headaches that come with it, of like, oh, this would be so much easier just to resolve in 5 minutes if I could just walk over to your desk and talk to you, versus trying to find a time and schedule a meeting. So that is one of arguably the bigger headaches. But I think that the pros kind of outweigh the cons in that situation.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. One of the other big benefits that comes from nearshoring team is a big productivity boost. And I think it can sometimes be maybe a little overrated, but productivity is one thing that definitely comes forward when you talk about expanding their team and their capabilities. Where does productivity rank in that kind of, I guess, like top 3 pros versus cons?
I think I'd have to put it like at number 3, because obviously it's very important. You want that productivity, but the cost savings and the ability to just kind of have that flexibility of, okay, I want you to work on this today, this tomorrow, and just having that person that can really be a fill-in anywhere you need them, or they can take over someone else's job and have something day to day. And maybe you have someone that's like a kind of a jack of all trades or a Jill of all trades. You can have that person in the office, so that way they're able to free up their time and bounce around and help other people that need it. So I think it'd have to go number 3 behind some of that flexibility options. But honestly, that productivity is pretty great, because if you can get them set up and started, you just kind of say go, and they have all the resources that they need at their disposal to really get going and, be a successful member of the team.
So I always like to ask you the question of, if I'm a business and I'm looking to expand, when do I know is the right time for me to do so? And the answer is always like, there's never a right time. You just got to kind of pull the trigger and do it. But for folks who are looking to maybe expand into a nearshoring option, are there certain maybe subsets of the transportation industry that work better for nearshore teams? And if you find yourself heavily involved in one of those subsets, is that when you look and you say, maybe this is a good option for us?
I would say that the best, I'm going to kick it back to, where do you start? And I would say, if you have a lot of operation support, so your track and trace, your some of your other like, more menial tasks or other things like that, where maybe you're verifying documents or looking things up on a carrier website, that's going to be the best place to start, because then you can because having the nearshoring solution is going to be a little bit cheaper than it is to have some of your more higher paid people working on it. So that way, that's also the easiest to get someone on the ground up to speed and running, because you don't have to necessarily have 10 years of supply chain experience to get going on that. It's something that can be done very quickly, and they can get up to speed quickly. So I think that if you do a lot of operations support, that's a great place to start for this staffing situation. And then also, if you're looking to upgrade some of your technology, or, kind of redefine things and make sure some of your integrations are actually fully working, or maybe redesign a data mining tool, I would definitely say that, if you're thinking about adding some developers, just give them a call, because chances are it's going to be a lot easier to go through them versus sitting there and going out there and hiring and competing against the big tech companies.
And you will definitely probably spend a lot less resources to go through a nearshoring process than you would to go through a full hiring, recruiting, employment offer, benefits, all of that above process, which the end of things can honestly take anywhere between like 3 weeks to sometimes half a year, depending on what that process looks like. Mary, for people who want to get Check Call either in their inbox or in their ear holes, where can they go to find it?
Well, if you want it in your ear holes, you can keep watching us on YouTube. The new episode will be out at 12:30 today. And if you are not a visual person, you're more of an audio person, that's fair. You can get it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. And then if you want to read the newest Check Call, that'll be coming out today at 2 p.m. Eastern in your inbox. And you can subscribe to that on FreightWaves.com/checkcall.
There we go, Mary. Thanks for that. We will catch up with you next week.
Bye, guys.